All right. I am very, very grateful to be sitting down with someone who I have a massive amount of respect from the men's gymnastics community, and someone who I think a lot of people have followed your career with. Jon and people. I'm here with Tom Meadows. How are you, man?
Great, man. Glad to be here this one.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to this. I think that you were one of the most sought after coaches to get, in general, people wanting to learn from you, but also on the podcast, I had a lot of people who were saying they want to hear more from the men's gymnastics side. So my goal is to get, you and maybe Mark Williams and some other people who are just kind of OGs, have been around for a long time and have seen this crazy thing.
Oh, gee, that kind of hurts a little bit, but
Yeah. So, I mean, starting off, I mean, I only know a little bit about where you guys came from and your background and stuff like that. Can you share with me? I mean, I only know through Jon and through other people that I've been friends with to hear your kind of journey, but how did things all start for you? And, where did you get to where you are now?
I'm a product of '84. Not too many people around these days are remember the good old '84 Olympics. But I'm a product of it. I literally started gymnastics probably, man, I started in May of '84, so right before the games. And so I did it because, just like everybody else, I had nothing to do. And sister was in it. My sister was doing a tumbling class, and I jumped in and had a little affinity for it, and was sent to a gym and tried out for a team. And it was all three boys, working out with the girls. So that's how I started, and I just kind of loved it and moved on and had some early success. And Dad was in the Air Force, so I popped around a little bit in a couple different places and ended up. I was that guy. I moved out when I was 14 to go train gymnastics because my parents couldn't move to a great place, and I ended up at a great place, Gymnastrum, up in Pennsylvania, and kind of where grew my love for the sport. One, because I became successful, and two, I was in a community of people that just love the sport. Got a guy named Joe Stallone who was, if people know Joe Stallone from back in the day from either Gymnastrum or Parkettes, the guy was just he was a big brother to me, and just his love of the sport and love of kids just really kind of impacted me in a way that grew me into the sport, and ended up at Oklahoma in college and just continue to grow my love and grow my experiences. And I soon found out that I wanted to be a coach. I coached a little bit on the side in high school, like most kids do sometimes, and loved working with the kids. And as I grew to Oklahoma, I learned that I was going to love it even more, and soon started taking notes from, the great Mark Williams, and he was my coach. He was my personal coach at OU. So I got to experience him firsthand, and I learned a lot about just the grind of the sports, and what it was going to take to get the next level of just trying to peel every little bit of ounce of an athlete out, because that guy pulls every ounce of talent out of you and then goes beyond. He made me way better than what my talent had. And so I tried to learn as much as I could from him as an athlete, and then as a coach. And when I was done with the sport in '94, my body finally gave out on me, and I went in coaching full time, and I got to coach a team up there in Oklahoma. He brought me over to Oklahoma Gold for a year. He soon went to Bart Connor. I stayed out there and kind of made my own path for a year. And going into that year, my best friend Aaron Basham, whose dad started Cypress Academy, was getting ready to graduate and move back to Houston, and he was asked to bring a boys coach down if he could find one. And we started talking, and of course I knew that's what I wanted to do, was coach, and came down and took a visit. In May of '95, I moved down here, and that was the beginning of Cypress Academy for me. And I got to sit and work underneath Bill Foster,
Mm.
who, you talk about OG. There's an OG.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like
so
AB
I got to
Grossfield.
learn. Oh man, so I got to learn under Bill for quite a few years. I worked with Bill until 2001 uh, as his coaching partner, assistant coach, and so it was me, him, and Aaron for a while. Aaron had to step down, and we brought in somebody new, and Chloe Van Cleve was the first one. And so I learned under Bill for a number of years, and I loved it. And he helped me grow into my love of coaching. And the one thing I learned from Bill was never stop learning. You're never going to know enough. And Bill, being around what he'd been doing, was always striving to learn more from other people. And that was one of the big things I learned from him. And
Mm.
so I just tried to piggyback on that and learn from anybody and everybody I could. And so 2001, I took over at Cypress Academy as the head coach, and here we are 18 years later.
I know. That's
20 years later
crazy.
at Cypress Academy. So I've been in the same place for, gosh, almost 25 years now. And that's kind of where I got my start and kind of how my career has started and grown from. And I've got a lot of people to thank and a lot of people that I've learned from, because everybody I've talked to and experienced in the sport, I've tried to pick up at least one thing and from the sport. And there's not a lot of inventors here anymore these days. Just to, can you duplicate and improve on what you learn? And that's kind of been my motto.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear the whole track. That's wild that you've gone through, Mark, and then now like what 25 years around, there.
Yeah.
And I think it's you alluded to a couple really important points that I hear from a lot of people, not only like athletes we have on here, but other people too. Is like education is so important, but also just constantly kind of having an open mind. What other things do you think helped you be successful? Because obviously you've gotten to a point now where you have multiple kids on national team, have a lot of success through John's era, but then also now through Laz and some people. So what are the things that you think kind of helped you kind of continue to accelerate your career versus I think a lot of people unfortunately get a little burnt out early and just throw it in?
Well, I think the big thing I pride myself on is truly trying to learn from other people, no matter
Mm,
who it is. It can be a first year compulsory coach that you see coming out on the floor with this hotshot little group, and I try to pay attention. I try to
mm,
pay attention to what he's doing. That is there something, one thing I can maybe pick up and use? Because one thing I've learned in my years, I make mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes. So the question is, can you eliminate the mistakes and can you repeat the good?
mm.
And so one thing I've done over the years is I've taken a lot of good notes, and I've really planned very well, and I go back and review my plans. And so when I see something new coming up, see somebody new coming up, or somebody who's been around, I always try to find one thing that they do, and I kind of try to implement it into my program and how it works. And I think the mistake a lot of times people make is they try to take something that somebody does and do the exact same thing in their own gym.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
there's no two programs alike. I don't
Mm,
care if it's the same name of a gym. It's different kids, different coaching styles, different coaching methods. And so you can't do the same thing for everybody. So one thing I would say that I've done is I've adapted to my own program, other people's methods or other people's means or different tricks of the trade. I try to make sure I adapt it to my program because my program is unique. And I would say the same thing for everybody else is what I do not necessarily is going to be perfect for your program, but can you pick it apart and make it adaptable for your program? Because it's just not going to work for everybody.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that's super important. I see that a lot too, is people, I think the blessing and the curse these days of the internet and social media is everybody just wants a quick answer. They want to know what drill to get a peach. They want to know exactly how many pull-ups I should do, how many rope climbs. They want to know
Give me the
what
number
exercise.
and give me exactly. I want the cookie cutter. I'm just going to put it in place and things will get better. And that's not the case. And I did it. I was a young guy. Oh man, you do that. I'm going to take that. Give me your exact. I want to see your strength program. I'm going to follow it and I'm going to get strong. It doesn't work that way.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And even within that, I think John had said something that he really valued about your coaching was that you were really individualized to each athlete. John said he's a get in my face kind of guy, real rah, hyped up, but other guys just don't take that well. They're a little bit more reserved. They can't get up in their face and scream at them or else they're going to shut down. You got to be really specific there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a large program. We always have had. That's one thing I learned from Bill is you don't have success without numbers. And I
Mm,
learned that from him as a coach, and I reflect on back on my own team, and the team that I came from in Pennsylvania, Gymnastics and Parkettes, we had a large upper level team. We were always a bunch of teenage guys all around each other. So we had a bunch of guys training towards the same goal.
mm,
However, you have a team concept and you have to be individualized inside that team concept because, again, everybody's a little bit different. And when it comes to growth, everybody's going to grow differently in our sport, especially on the men's side. Because, I mean, one kid hits puberty at 15, one kid hits it at 18 or 19. Heck,
mm.
I've seen some kids hit it at 20. So
Yeah.
you got to keep your team concept, but be able to break off on that and really be very individualized with certain areas once you get past that general idea. Because everybody's going to do some, for strength example, everybody's going to do the same strength, the
Mm,
same idea of strength concept. But you've got to know when that one guy who, they all might be 15, but one kid's ready to do one exercise, one kid's not ready to do one exercise because maybe he hasn't gone through that spurt yet. So his elbows aren't ready, his shoulders aren't ready, his chest isn't ready. So you've got to
mm.
be able to really kind of pick that individual out. I mean, I have on my team right now, I've got my level 10s. I have one level 10, Caden Clinton, who, I mean, I don't know if he's as high as my chest yet. And he's a 14-year-old. but he's a beast. But he's, on my level 10 team. And so all my level 10s are doing a certain strength program, but he can't do what Garrett Bronton's doing, who's a level
Mm,
10.
mm,
Garrett's is just kind of going through that nice little puberty stand. He's going to do one more shot of it, but you can tell that his body's ready. And they're both level 10s. That doesn't mean they
mm.
can do the same thing. So you got to be very, very aware of your individual athletes within your group of guys program, because if you don't find yourself individualizing certain things, you're gonna one, hurt somebody, or you're not going to be able to push somebody where they need to be. Because if you get too much in the middle, someone's going to lose out, and you're not going to be able to maximize their potential.
Yeah, that's so important too. And I mean, obviously you're preaching the choir here, and John said this too, but as a medical provider, man, I see so many guys that are like, 11, 12, 13, 14, and their elbows are super banged up. Their shoulders are getting cuff tears and they're having to slap stuff early. And I know, I guess it's a twofold question. So one is how do you deal with the pressure of, because I think a lot of the pressure comes from like parents or from the gymnasts themselves. They want to get skills now. They want to do big release moves. They want to do crosses. They want to do, double fulls on vault. And it's like, man, like you are not going to make it if we do this. How do you kind of get through to the parents and kind of the gymnasts themselves about like, no, we got to be patient, do your homework, do a lot of strength. Like, how do you kind of delay that inevitable, like I want to go now?
Well, I think that's a philosophical question for your own program. And so for us, what we've developed here is our philosophy is be good level 10s. That's what our goal is. My coaching partner, Igor Verny, who's been with me for 10 years, 11 years, we really have the same philosophy. And I've kind of had that from the beginning. I learned that from Bill. And I learned that myself. I mean, I was a good little kid, but I started at 12 years old. I was 12 years old walking into a gym, and when I was 17 years old, I was a national champion. And so it took a long time to get there, and knowing that journey. And I was 16, 17 years old beating guys who were the number one in the country when they were 12 and 13. But I surpassed them. And so the one thing that I learned was the life of a male gymnast is a long journey.
Sure.
Everybody hears the old quote, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I mean, that is our sport in a nutshell. And so I've taken that philosophy in our program. And the one thing I try to stress is communication with our parents from the very, very beginning. A kid gets on my team, and what the first conversations are, I'm not concerned about how you do at level 5, level 6, level 7.
Yeah.
And people know it. We're not great compulsory gymnasts. My kids at level 5, level 6, level 7, they're just not great. They're good. They're good kids. They're good athletes. They're learning the right steps. But I mean, how good can you possibly be before the age of 14? Great. You can do all these great things, but when your body hits puberty and you hit that growth phase, how are you going to make it through that growth phase to then get to the next level? And yes, it's very important to get all the basics and all the great skills and things developed before then, because you have to have some kind of a base. But that can't be the main focus. So you got to focus on the basics and the skills and the ideas and the concepts. But the big thing you've got to create is you've got to nurture that athlete to make them want to continue past 14. They want to be able to get in the gym 20 hours plus a week at age 14 in high school with teenage life, and want to come in and train that hard. And then know that when you get to about that 13, 14 age, now I can really kick in my strength level, my conditioning level, my skill level, and really ramp up my learning process. And so for us, what we've really tried to create is that philosophy in the gym and among the parents especially, and the athletes, that, let's train hard now. Let's learn a lot of good gymnastics, learn a lot of good concepts, learn strength concepts, learn conditioning concepts, learn what it's going to take. So when you get that 13, 14, 15-year-old phase, man, you can kick it in, and not just kick it in, you want to kick it in. You want to get in there and really go. So my big thing is that philosophy of more later, less now. And don't get me wrong, we work hard at the young ages. We don't just, it's not just rainbows and cake and, we're going to have fun the whole time. We have fun, but we're tough. But we try to get that concept built in so that when they're older, they want to be there. And I think that's one thing that we've done well, because we are able to sustain those guys for a very long time and really get into the ages of 14. We had a kid, had a great example a couple of years ago, this kid, Evan Davis, who won national championships 2 years ago. He was in a good level 5, 6, 7. He wasn't anything major. But all of a sudden, level 8, he was, okay, 12, 13, we see some stuff. And 14, 15, okay, you're getting better. And 16, 17, he's one of the better athletes in the country. So that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is taking those kids, and they might not be super hot shot and that really talented little kid that shows, at 9 years old, oh my gosh, he's going to be a world beater. And we do have those. We've gotten those before. John was one of them. Chris Brooks was one of them. Caden Clinton's been one of them. We've had those kids come through, but you've got to sustain that body and really make sure he lasts. And so that's been our philosophy with our parents and our program, and then the communication with the kids. I mean, because like you said, the one thing you said just a minute ago, I want to learn these. I want to learn cross.
Yeah.
Cross, iron cross. That is, that's men's gymnastics. Oh, what are the kids always? Oh, did you do that thing out here like this with the hoops in your hands? That's what everybody's asked. And that's the ultimate skill for men's gymnastics is, can you do a cross? And that's the hardest thing to get through is when they start getting to that age. Oh, I want to learn all these big skills because I got to be strong on rings, which is very true. You have to be. But you got to communicate with your guys too. And that's one thing that we do is we communicate with them. It's like, look, we're going to learn all this little stuff. We're going to do a lot of prep work. We're going to do a lot of elbow work, shoulder work. You're going to do a lot of things to learn the skills, and we're going to manipulate the body and make you feel like you're learning them. But we're not going to let you really go until you're ready. And who knows what that is? Some kids 15, some kids 18. John, I know he mentioned things, but he didn't have a cross till his senior year in high school.
Yeah.
He didn't. Part of the time I didn't let him do it. Now, I say I didn't let him do it. I didn't let him train all the time. But the one thing that you have to let kids do is you got to let them have fun, and you got to let them try things sometimes, just to kind of, one, get it out of their system, and two, say they're trying it. And so the one thing I've done is we train the body for certain parts, for crosses, for Malteses, for inverts, for all this stuff, along with other skills as well. And every once in a while there's, hey, try it, have fun, but we're, trying it one day a week, once every month, or a testing period where you just, oh yeah, go have fun. You see them off on the side, trying to drop down to that cross. All right, cool. Don't do it again. You gotta give them that rope, they got to have some fun with it. But in terms of physically training all the time, you've got to communicate with the guys about what the long-term goal is. And sometimes that's tough because, they're teenage boys, they know everything already. So don't worry about me. I'm good to go. I'm ready for it. No, you're not ready for it. Just calm down, just relax. We're going to keep training these skills on the side. And trust me, one day it's going to happen. I had a kid just the other day. I haven't let him do a lot of crosses in the past. We've done a lot of the prep work, and that he's got a pretty good Maltese, and dropped in the other day and dropped down and was like, dude, I can do a cross. I'm like, yes. It's one of those things, you're going to get it. Just be patient and be patient with it. And so that's the biggest thing I think is to really profess in your program, is that patience is what we've really done well in our program. Is be patient, be patient, be patient. And then it's going to come. And, some guys, I had a kid leave my program at 18 years old, go off to college, and couldn't do a cross, couldn't do a Maltese, could do a planche. Very good. He was All-American on rings a couple years for Oklahoma as a ring specialist.
Wow, that's awesome.
He was any guy, 18, a little guy. You could tell he was going to be strong one day. He had it in him, but he had to go through puberty, and I don't think he went through puberty until sophomore year in college. And then all of a sudden, he became one of the top ring guys for Oklahoma, which is saying something. And became was right there in the All-American status. So I mean, it happens for different kids at different times. So you've got to be very aware. And I'm not going to say I have a medical background where I can test. You just got to be in tune with your athletes on when to be able to push them and knowing what their body's capable of. So Igor and I have done a very good job of communicating that with the kids and with the parents, that be patient, trust me, we're going to push your kid when they need to be pushed. We will push them, that's for sure. But just you got to be smart with that body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely confirm as a medical provider that I'm having a very similar conversation when they come in the clinic anyway. So you're kind of, it's very tough, man. It's very tough. And I guess this is the only time I want to divert away from the men's gymnastics conversation, but I see from the guys' side point of view that there's many more coaches. I think it's because the numbers, there's not many guys that are in the program compared to the thousands in the women's program. But given everything that's going on with a lot of the elites and a lot of the college and stuff, I think there's a lot of, controversy / just people are a little upset with the way that, young girls especially are pushed super hard. Do you, from the men's side, looking across the women's, do you see that you wish people would just be like, more patient? They have to peak a little bit earlier, obviously, because of colleges and stuff. But like, man, I'm seeing like 9-year-olds with back fractures and 10-year-olds with OCD surgery. I think that like we have this insanity that's going on right now. Do you feel like some of the men's concepts of like just pushing a little bit later and delaying to like 16 or so is that feasible for women to keep them safer, or is that not doable?
I'm not going to call my expert on women's gymnastics
Yeah.
because I'm not. I coached girls 1 year.
Nice.
1 year. I filled in for a year when we had a little gap in a coaching situation. And we had a unique situation with our girls program, but I coached them like guys with that same kind of idea. And we're not world beaters. Our girls program is growing. It's going to be. We've got some good people in place right now. My daughter's a gymnast. She's
Nice.
a level 10. And she just went through some back stuff. It wasn't from chronic, beating. It was, she actually had a crash. And so she had to go back from that. I really wish they could take some of the concepts. Our women's program is so competitive to be at that top level because, if you're at the top level, I mean, you're going to the World Championships, you're going to the Olympic Games, and you're vying for a gold medal. So that is mind-blowing. That, oh my gosh, if I get there, so I got to be there fast. And I think that's a concept that I wish more people could really attain to, is just be a little more patient, because when these girls get to that 16, I mean, and what's nice is now that the age has gotten a little bit older for the girls. It's not the old school 14-year-old hot shot, make the World Championships and Olympic Games. They have to be a little bit older now because of the age rules, which, I think is smart just for physical health, because the girls need to be able to sustain it too. And quite frankly, they need to be able to do something after gymnastics. And if their body can't handle it, what are they going to be useful for later? So I wish they could adopt some of those concepts of slow down a little bit. Let's not be so crazy with these young girls so that you can get a little bit more out of them later. Unfortunately, it's been working for them. And you know how it is. Success breeds success. And so if it's working, let's keep going. I hope that seeing the injury rate kind of go up, kind of opens some eyes here a little bit to slow down a little bit. You can still have the great success that you're having. I mean, Simone took how many months off? How many years off? I mean, now Simone's a freak.
She's an anomaly.
I know Simone. So Simone, if you hear this, trust me, I love you, darling, but you're a freak. I've seen Simone in our gym when she was, 13, 14 years old, and you knew it right away. She's a freak of an athlete, but other girls have done it. Alicia did it. Allie did it. I mean, it can be proven that you can step away and take a little bit of a break. And I'm not saying take a break, but you can slow the process down a little bit and then become great. There's one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on in our program is slow down to go fast. Slow down a little bit so then you can go fast a little bit later. You can learn the skills, but you don't have to be 9, 10 years old and learning the big skills. There's ways to learn those skills as you get older. And I think that the concept of you have to learn it now so you can maintain it for a long time is a misconception. Now, obviously, I'm not going to claim myself as an expert with women's gymnastics. I don't, but I just, an athlete's an athlete and sport is sport. And so, if you go too fast and you break the body down, you have to take time off and then you have to relearn things because your body's different. I mean, the girls, as they grow, their body's different than when they were 12. I mean, more so with the guys, I think, but with the girls, with the amount of timing they have to do, I think there's a way you can be a little more patient and take that concept moving forwards, and hit them a little bit more when they get to that 15, 16, 17 age. But I think with the idea of I got to be ready early, the whole college recruiting craze is a huge part of it, because these girls, I mean, they're recruiting these girls as freshmen and sophomores in college now. These girls my daughter's a freshman. She's 14 years old, just did college bound this last summer. And she wasn't the youngest one in the thing. There were girls who were graduating in 2024 being looked at for recruiting. Jeez. I mean, that concept alone with the parents, oh, my kid's going to be a freshman. They got to be looked at now because they got to be looking at signing when they're sophomores, and who knows what's going to happen for the next 3 years, I mean, my daughter's just turning 14. There's no way they don't know what they want to do in college.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, I didn't know what I was going to do when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
So I think the pressure from a lot of that coming down has kind of pushed these kids and these coaches to get better early.
Mm.
And I think if there was a way to look at that concept a little bit, I think it would help. But until that changes, I think you're not gonna see much change because I mean, eighth grade, the kids are 12 and 13. If they're being looked at being recruited in ninth, 10th grade, you got to have kids ready. I have
Yeah.
the same concept for my guys going to college. They got to be ready when they're juniors and seniors.
Mm.
Because if they're not being looked at by the end of their junior year, they're not going to be recruited highly in their senior year to go off to college. So our
Mm.
whole concept is that 14, let's see how ready you're ready to go, because from 14 to 16 to 17, that's when the real big push happens. And so, but that's, 14, 15, 16, 17 in a guy's life, they're ready to go.
Mm.
11, 12, 13 in girls, that's when they're growing and really going through some of those stages when you can really find the injuries. So I think that's a part of it. And so I think in terms of just philosophy, if they could find a way to slow that process down and slow that idea of I got to hurry up and be ready to be looked at, I think it would really help our athletes in terms of health. Because you're
Yep.
right. I mean, I look over our girls team and the amount of it's crazy. The girls team in most programs aren't as big as my optional team. My optional
Mm.
boys team is as big as most girls programs, and the
Mm.
rate of injury that you hear about in girls optional gymnastics these days is alarming. And it's
Mm.
it's it's like you said. I mean, you're in the medical profession, so backs, knees, shoulders, even girls, the shoulder injuries that they're having because of the
Mm.
gymnastics they're doing is at that age is just so tough. If they could just, if everybody, not just girls, the guys too, just slow down a little bit to go faster later, I think is a real important concept right now.
Yeah, I really love that. I think that's a really thing for people to kind of hold on to. And I would agree. I think that a lot of it comes down to the pressure from college is definitely a big one. But also I think that we need to take a little bit more accountability from the top and like, especially the higher level coaches in the US, but other places I've traveled to is like, if the top is preaching that, hey, slow down, do the basics well, like get real strong, push it out a little bit, that will trickle down a little bit. And I think thankfully we're seeing more, ex elite or college gymnasts who are coming out and saying like, hey, like I wish I would have gone down a little bit slower. Like there's a way to kind of space these things out because a lot of it comes down to, unfortunately, a little bit of ego where they want to compete these skills now. The coaches are living or the parents are living a little bit vicariously through their kids. We've talked a lot about that in the podcast, but I think that now we're seeing kids who push a little bit later and hopefully their example will trickle down to the next generation. Like, all right, let's wait till we're 14 to do a double full, or let's wait till 15 or 16 to do these real hard tumbling passes because like you said, as soon as you carry one of those back injuries or one of those knee injuries, man, that's really tough to come back from.
Once it happens, if the trickle down effect, well, that becomes an issue for your whole career. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a back injury when you're young, I know I've had a couple of guys have some stuff, and it was growth. They just grew too fast, and they have back issues. And so, if you're not willing to sacrifice the time now, you're not going to have the time to work with them later. You just won't
Yep.
have them. And so
Yep.
that's the hard thing to swallow sometimes. As a coach, I've had a hard time swallowing. Man, this kid is right now ready to just make that next step, and we got to stop for 8 weeks.
Yep. Yep.
And you've got to be able to just take a deep breath and say,
Yep.
look, if you want to have them in 8 weeks, you got to do this. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling through this for months and months and months. I had a kid, Matt Wensky was that guy. He had 2 summers of it, 2 summers of back issues. And we, pride ourselves on using tumble tracks and soft surfaces and not doing a lot. And he grew like crazy and had a back issue and had to take time off on one summer. Came
Yeah.
back, did great job. Had to take time off again. It came back because he grew again. And you just have to be willing to listen to the medical field and take that time off if you want that kid to continue going.
Yeah.
Uh, because again, what how much have you done with a 12-year-old if they're winning now and doing great now, but they can't do anything when they're 15, 16 years old? Maybe that was the end of their career, but if it was because he was brought on by injury, we didn't really
Mm.
do that kid a lot of justice. And so that's one thing I hope people can learn is slow down a little bit,
Yeah.
move a little bit faster later, because then you can really get all the talent out of that kid. And when they leave the sport, they had a great experience no matter what age and what level. And now
Yeah.
they can go back and bring their kids into it. Now we can continue to grow our sport instead of, hey, man, I had a horrible time with the sport. I'm out. I'm not putting them back into it. We're going to go do something else.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of wrapping up what you said is when you do dig into the higher level coaches, I'm really good friends. I'm not familiar if you're familiar with Nick Ruddick, but him, and he's good friends with Laurent. He's really good friends with Amy Borman. He's talked about, some of this stuff, and they all say the same thing about how important it is to go slow and how important it is to really develop a lifelong, because I always tell people that like 8 weeks now for this acute stress reaction or whatever is probably worth 8 months next year if you can just like do the hard work. But also there's plenty of stuff you can work on when you got a little banged up. If your foot's a little sore, there's tons of stuff you can work on. There's tons of ways to train skills without doing the hard repetitions. It's just having an open mind to not thinking that only doing the hard impact is how you're going to get the skill. There's thousands of other ways you can work around an injury if you're sore, or improve upon it, or work on something else. But I think they all kind of carry that same philosophy with them.
Yeah, I mean, there's gymnastics is great that way. I was just talking to someone. I don't even remember what we were talking about. I was talking about a planning, I think, lecture. And that's one great thing about the sport of gymnastics is when you have a body part that's under stress or that's hurt, you rolled your ankle, you caught a finger on a parallel bar or a pommel horse. Guess what? You can still do our sport. You can still work out. You can still go get better.
Yep.
In another sport, you roll an ankle, a soccer or football, you can't get better in your sport. You can go do strength and conditioning, but you can't improve your sport. In gymnastics, you tweak a wrist, well, go get on tumble track and trampoline. You can improve your air stance. You can improve your tumbling. You can improve. There's so many things you can do. And that's the one thing that you need to be aware of and be able to take a step back and start a whole nother planning process for those kids. It is now plan, how can you still improve in another way?
Yep.
And do you have the ability to really put that kid on his individual path to move forwards? It's not a step back. And that's the one thing a lot of people think too much of in terms of injury, because it's our sport. It happens. I don't care how safe you are, how methodical you are, and how purposeful things happen. You miss a wrist on a Healy, you miss a wrist on a circle, bars, you miss your hand on a pack salto. You have these things happen. And so the one thing that the mindset has to be of a gymnastics coach, period, is when you have one setback in one place, you can move forwards 3 steps on another place.
Sure.
And so take that. And so, hey, man, you have time off the floor now. Guess what? Now you can have more time doing other things and taking that weakness and making it even better. So when you come back to it, you can continue going over there. So I think that's the one thing. That's another thing that the coaches can do is, when you have these setbacks, is don't look at it as a setback, look at it as an opportunity to make something else better. And I think that's a mindset to get into the athletes and the parents as well, as, oh my gosh, an injury. It's not the end of the world. It's not a good thing. It's not ideal. We never want it. But it's an opportunity to make something else better. And so my challenge to a lot of people is, well, in 6 weeks, in 3 weeks, in 8 weeks, how can you be better in another area? And how can that area make you come back faster? Because you're right with the injuries. My timetable for kids and even parents, especially in my gym, is if you're out longer than 3 days, the return time is 2 times the amount of time you were out. Yep. And I tell them, you take 5 days off, it's going to take you 10 days to get back to where you were before you took the 5 days off.
Yep. And
if you don't have that timetable in your head, you're going to be expecting the wrong outcome.
Yep.
If you take 3 weeks off of an injury, it's going to take 6 weeks to get back to where you were before the 3 weeks on that particular body part in that area. If it's a wrist and pommel horse, you're going to have 6 weeks of time to get back to where you were on that wrist, because it just takes that long physically to get back, or timing. And so that's a timetable that kind of I have set as a coach for when they do come back. And I tell the parents, like, look, you've been out 10 weeks, period, on something. In 20 weeks, you'll be where you were. Now, sometimes great athletes, and if you have a real good process, obviously that time gets shortened. But that's the mindset in terms of return to normalcy that I have. And it's worked very well in the past in terms of improving a percentage of a percentage to return to normal, whether it be pommel or humbling or whatever body part it was. That's my timetable from my experience. Absolutely. It's not a medical thing. It's not I read it in
That's
my
very
book.
close to what we say on the medical side. So
it's what I've experienced with finding guys to get back to 100%. So that whole idea of being patient, whether it be in the sport for long term, recovering from injury, recovering from a tweak, is something that we use in our philosophy with our parents and our kids, so they know, hey, look, I rolled an ankle. I've got to take off 3 weeks. Okay, well, it's going to take another 6 weeks to be back where you were. So let's not come back and oh well, he's out of the cast, so he can start going 100% now.
Yeah.
No, he can't. We're gonna. Oh, it's been 2 weeks. Why isn't he doing it? Because we're still on a timetable to come back. We're gonna be okay by the time we get back, and that's a hard concept to learn, especially for the most competitive kids,
For sure.
because they want to be back. I'm out. I can go. So, but let's take our time and let's be smart about this, so you can be back in time.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's really, really good sound advice for people. And you took the words out of my mouth too, especially in the beginning. You were saying like, I think unfortunately the culture of definitely on the men's side, because guys are way more stoic, but on the women's side too, both are just a sport in general. It's like everyone's just like not addressing the reality of injuries and saying like, it's going to happen. It's an inevitable part of sports and gymnastics in general. But like, if you try to sweep it under the rug and like don't talk about it or just keep going, you're fine. Like, man, you're just like exponentially adding the weeks it's going to take to get better. Because if you don't respect that first time the kid comes to you and says, hey man, my wrist is really hurts on pommels today, or like my back's kind of sore today, and you just brush it off or sweep it under the rug, and then 2 weeks later they're really, really bad, like you have to address that straight on. I think that's the biggest error I see is everyone's like, oh man, why are my kids always hurt? Like, what am I doing wrong? Or like they just ignore it. And it's like everybody has these things they deal with. Like, embrace reality and just deal with it, man.
It's our sport. I mean, you're doing everything impactful on every body part.
Yeah,
Something's
right.
going to be sore, something's going to bother you, and you're going to have an injury. I'll go back to what Jon said. I never had a surgery until I was, almost my career in 2012. He had a surgery with his foot because he broke his foot in 2011. I didn't have these. Jon had little things happen.
Yeah.
Jon was in a cast when he was 12 years old because he came up with a little wrist issue. But he took advantage of it. That's where he became an air sense freak. He came off on a high bar. He missed a Kovacs one time and came down on our resi pit, where the resi pit met the pit. We had that, like most gyms, you got the resi pit and the foam pit. Well, he came down straight under the resi pit and caught where the resi pit caught the concrete, and there's a 2x4 that connects everything in, and he came down on the perfect spot. And so he had a compression sprain underneath the bottom of his foot. He left for a national team camp the next day. He couldn't walk in the airport because it just blew up overnight. And so he had a major sprain for like 6 to 8 weeks. You missed a Kovacs and came down in a funny spot. There was nothing that could be done about it. So everybody goes through those weird things. You're flipping and twisting and you got, not that you expect an injury, but when it happens, you have to roll with it and be able to adapt your program for that kid. From the very beginning, we talked about we have program structure. Well, things happen individually. So how can you take that splinter off of your program, that one kid, and still make your program work for that kid to make him better when he comes back? Or is he just off on the side? Okay, we'll deal with you when you get back. And I see that way too often is, okay, go over here. You're hurt. When you get back, we'll start working again. And that's a shame because for me, you're not doing that kid justice on trying to make him better, who loves the sport that you're coaching. So take that extra time to really find anything you can do to make that kid better, whether it be a separate strength program, an air sense. Hey, look, there's an opportunity to get better on pommel works, better on parallel bars, better on high bar and rings because you have an ankle issue. What can we do? Can we swing through the bottom? Can we not swing through the bottom? So I think you got to be really insightful as a coach to really find what you can make that kid better at upon his return.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a funny side story, but I don't know if you know this story, but Dave Durrani, he tore his ACL the first day at Stanford when he went on his first turn. And he said that was like his opportunity to be his coach. Like, all right, we're going to fix your handstand. Your handstand sucks and you're not that great on like these things. So he's like, what? He's like, that's crazy. But that opportunity for him in that 8 months is what allowed him to become such a great ring specialist. And then obviously got him on success with Team USA. So I think coaches, like you said, the biggest thing you said that I think is huge is not sequestering that kid to the side and being like, oh, you're hurt, go over there. We'll deal we'll deal with you in your back. Like, man, that's mentally just crushes a little kid whose social involvement and like love for the sport, like you said. their kids. Like you have to take the extra step and like find some way to keep them involved a little bit.
Absolutely. Especially, I mean, girls are that way, but man, you get with a teenage guy,
Yeah.
12, 13, 14, and that's when that's when you're really trying to continue them in the sport and continue that love of the sport. And if you take a guy and separate him out with his social group, you're
Yeah.
done. You're
Yeah.
going to lose him. He's not going to want to be back. So you've got to find a way, because he's got to be separate sometimes to go do different things, because he can't do floor while the group's on floor.
Yeah.
Well, can he work with another group in your gym, or can he stay with that group on floor and do things on floor that are helping him with the other events? So there's going to be times he has to be separated out, but you've got to continue to keep those kids involved socially within
Mm,
your, especially guys, because once you separate them out and almost feel like because they feel condemned, they feel,
sure.
I'm put out on this island, I have to go do all this other stuff.
Yep.
They've got to be a part of the program, a part of those guys, a part of their friends, because in most cases, that is their friend circle. They don't
Yep.
have another circle outside the gym because they're there the whole time.
Sure.
So you've got to keep them involved. Otherwise, they'll find a way to get out of the sport and go find something else they can enjoy doing with other people, other kids their age, because
Yep.
that's why they're there most times.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Their attention goes elsewhere. And this actually leads to a perfect next kind of question is we've kind of alluded to a little bit, but like, the injuries being high and definitely the mental strain of gymnastics itself. I think, we've always seen a slow decline of the sport, unfortunately, on a little bit of a JO in the college level, especially. But I'm curious about what you think. I'm sure you've talked with a lot of guy coaches about how to keep the programs alive at the JO level, but also how to keep some of the colleges alive. So I went to Springfield College, which is a D3 school, and I had an amazing experience. It changed my life forever. But every guy that I've talked to is like, man, as soon as I got to college, it like refired my love. But then now we're seeing it's so hard because so many college programs are kind of drifting down. I'm curious about, I talked with Jake and Dave about this on a different podcast, but I'm curious about your thoughts about what we have to do as a community or what we have to do as a sport to kind of keep more men's programs alive, keep men's coaches involved. I know that's really tough, but also keep the colleges kind of alive and well.
That's a tough one,
Yeah.
because that's a real battle. I mean, we're fighting reality of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And that, if you hate to say it, but when it comes all down to it, it's the mighty dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And our sport doesn't bring in money on the men's side, especially. I mean, you look at the stands at U.S. championships, the guys session, the girls session, and the girls are successful and they're girls. And so for some in our country, the popularity of women's gymnastics is just so much higher than the men on
Yep.
that stage, which is a shame because our men are great athletes and they're doing great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And on the college level, the same way. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job. I mean, when you look at team sport, you go watch a gymnastics men's meet, and the concept of team is unheralding. And
Yep.
I'm not putting out other sports. Other sports are great when you go to those college atmospheres, but the gymnastics atmosphere, when you really truly get in the gym and watch a college meet, I mean, you see one guy competing and the rest of them competing with them. They're
Yeah.
on the sidelines going crazy,
Yeah.
and I mean and they're truly a team and a cohesive unit. And so we've got to find a way to kind of expand on that and promote that aspect
Mm-hmm.
of how good team men's gymnastics is to the communities, to the businesses, to really buy into that concept. Because until we can get them to buy into the team sports and to really see that love,
Mm.
it's going to be tough because, again, we're fighting dollars with 500 people in the stands. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't care what you're doing, 500 people in the stands at a university level, that doesn't make money. It
Yep.
doesn't bring in TV contracts. It's great to see some gymnastics being shown up on the Big Ten networks and even,
Mm.
the Pacific Conference champion, the Oklahoma's being shown on some different Fox Sports Southwest now. It's great to see
Yeah.
them back because for many years we didn't have any coverage at all.
Yeah.
Uh, but until we can get some real media coverage out there, uh, I think we're going to be in a tough battle. So, is there a way to get our sports out more mainstream? We get the single cameras on the events at NCAA championships, and you have to get on your computer to go find it
Yeah.
and listen to it. And it's great to watch, but how can we get that live and mainstream? I mean, even and I hate to be critical, but USA Gymnastics, I mean, our men's championships, you had to be on a computer to watch it the first day.
Yeah.
Uh, and
It was also the
again,
same weekend.
yeah, and we go NBC, and it's how do we get that back out there to be live? I mean, I was a kid. Again, I'm a product of '84. At 84 beyond, I was watching NCAA championships, 86, 87. I was watching UCLA and Nebraska. I was watching these guys go at it back then, and I was a UCLA gymnast fanatic. I mean, I wanted to go there. I was in Florida. I was a freak for UCLA gymnastics. That's what I love. Peter Vidmar, Mitch Gaylor, these guys, that was what I wanted to do. It was on TV, so we had this something to look to. And now, I mean, I know computers and all this stuff is easy to get to, but it's not going into the living room and getting that 9, 10-year-old boy watching ESPN. Heck, we were on the Wild World of Sports for competitions. Got to see the skier crash on the way down, and then gymnastics was on a Saturday afternoon. You had to come in from playing outside to go watch gymnastics because you wanted to, and it was in front of everybody. So how do we find a way to get away from the computers? And all this is awesome, but how do we get it out of the computer screen and onto the main screen to really hit that community, to then get people more involved and more interested to get back into the universities, to give the money back to the universities, back to the alumni associations, to help build this program again, because we're at a dire straits right now.
Sure.
I mean, we're so low. I mean, heck, again, I mean, I was competing from 90 to 94, and I was competing against UCLA and Iowa State when they dropped their programs.
Yep.
I mean, UCLA dropped in 1994, and I was a product of watching them. Almost the whole Olympic team in '84 was from UCLA. How did 12 years later that program lose our Olympic team, basically? And I was competing against them. Their bench was next to us, and thinking they're done. After this meet, if we beat them, they're done. And we beat them. We moved on to NCAA championships. Their program was done. It's some individuals go to NCAA. It was gone. I mean, that was heartbreaking as an athlete, and heartbreaking in the future of the sport. And since then, I mean, it's just been tough. I mean, UCLA went down. Now we're down to Berkeley, who's a self-funded program. Thank God we have money going into the program to help self-fund it. But these programs are just so essential to men's gymnastics because, I mean, it's crazy because they're so essential to men's gymnastics. Kids get into sport. Parents put kids in the sport because they want to be collegiate athletes. They want to go get college scholarships. Yep. And knowing how few opportunities there still are, just having those opportunities keeps feeding our sport. Whether it's the JO kid, the rec kid, or the elite kid, it's still feeding our sport with that mindset of, we can maybe go do it in college. And you can go do these club programs. So I think another way to do it is we've got to support the club programs. And that's a mindset of the parent. That's communication to the parents, because there's too often the parent thinks, a club program is low-level gymnastics, and that's not for my kid. It is for your kid. Mm-hmm. Club gymnastics is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's the level of athlete is great right now because there's so many programs. There's great athletes at these club programs. Kewan Watts is a phenomenal athlete, and he's at Arizona State University, which is a club program. He was at USA Championships, winning medals on the floor at USA Championships, and he's at a club program. So I mean, how awesome is that? When I was in college, University of Washington had athletes at USA Championships every year, and they were a club program. And so if we can also continue to support these club programs, I think we can still continue to grow college gymnastics. And it might not be, Division I and scholarship type athletes, but if we can grow the college community, we can still continue to grow our sport and grow opportunities for our kids to come out of high school, because that's a bad concept. Is these parents thinking, if I can't go to college scholarship, then my kid can't get into college, because there's so many opportunities out there. I don't know the number. I apologize. But I want to say it's in the 70s. How many club programs there are in college right now?
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
And I'll tell you what, I've heard a lot of people. I haven't had the opportunity to go, but that club championships that is hosted, and USAG helps host that meet, which is awesome. I hear is one of the most outstanding events to go participate in. And so now my challenge there is, why is that not on the media?
Right.
Why
Right.
is that not able, okay, that might not be TV coverage, but why is that not being web streamed for all of
Mm.
our kids to watch and participate in? Get that on the web. Get that out there so these parents and these kids can see, man, I got Arizona State, I got UCLA, I got Washington, I've got all these other programs, Texas A&M,
Yep.
Baylor. Oh, I got all these other opportunities to go and look at these guys competing as a team. They're doing awesome. And so I think that's another opportunity we're missing out on, is how can we get that stuff out into the media somehow as well, and not just a little blurb on a website. Oh, here was the meet. Here's some
Mm.
highlights. Let's get that out there,
Sure.
because the number of men and women that are competing in that is incredible. And those are incredible people. Those kids that are keeping those programs going are awesome people, and those are the people that can be the leaders of our program in the future as well, because those guys are self-funded, self-determined, self-coached. They run
Yep.
their own program. They travel their own programs. Those are the leaders of our sport that we need to tap into.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's funny you mentioned about UCLA. We had a very similar relationship with Temple. So obviously we compete against Temple a lot. And man, those guys are our best friends. We used to have them at our houses all the time and hang out with them. And like when their program went down, it was just absolutely heartbreaking to watch those guys, because they were legit, man. Temple was a great program, and to see them fall was tough. But I agree with you. I think, and Dave made this point really, really well, and so did Jake's. They're saying that the college programs from the men's side, especially, given the code being open and stuff like that, but like that's our main feeder system for national team and for these big world and championship events. And like, I think if the USA Gymnastics did a better job of highlighting how important those colleges were for our program success in the elite level, I think a lot more people would realize and see that coverage. It's huge. But I agree. I mean, like I was saying before, like doing things like putting men's championship the same day as women's championship, like for coverage and stuff like that. It's like, man, you were just asking to just get shot in the foot. Like you have to be better about highlighting the specific events for men's gymnastics, and like, Winter Cup or things like that were big back in my day. I watched those online and I was hooked, man. That was like all I
Yeah.
did was.
Yeah, that's all it needs to be. And kids, they're attached to their phones and attached to their computers, but we've got to hit the parents too. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
I'm a parent. I'm not on my phone all the time. I'm not sitting on my computer following all these. It's just, the 14-year-olds know more about these computers and phones than we do,
Yeah,
and so, but the parents are the one that's going to put them in the sport. The
exactly.
kid, how many 6-year-olds come up and say, "Mommy, I want to do gymnastics."
Yeah,
How many 6-year-old boys say they want to do, hey, mom, I want to do gymnastics. Hey, dad, I want to do gymnastics. It
yep,
doesn't happen. Often the parents are the ones putting them in. So it's not just hooking the kids, it's hooking the parents. And how do we get to the parents? Because
for
the
sure.
parents aren't going to go do this on the computer all the time. They come home, they click on the TV to kind of hang out and relax a little bit. I know I do. I've got all my programs recorded.
Yep.
And so how do we tap into them a little bit better to get this visual out there,
Mm.
and make them understand that we have this opportunity to go beyond, because once the men's gymnastics loses more opportunities, I think we lose more opportunities to keeping kids in the gym, because that's why they're there.
Yep.
I mean, if you go ask kids, parents, why they're in gymnastics, especially males age 13 to 16, 95% of them will say to go to college, try to get a
Yep.
college scholarship.
Yep.
You know, 95% of our male athletes who graduate high school don't get scholarships. Uh,
Exactly.
so where are they going? What are they doing? And so I think that's the big concern right now that everybody's trying to deal with. And we say, we need to highlight these club programs, because if we get more club programs and we start getting these higher level athletes that got club programs and better programs, who knows? Maybe the door does open up to start a new program and get some more visibility. But if we can get more visibility in these programs, I think it helps support the Division I program,
Sure.
and and support that. And the more bottom you have, that old triangle, the more bottom here, the better the top's going to be, and we can continue to feed that program. And who knows? Maybe we do get another program back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing you highlighted really well, and I think something you do so well with the guys that you work with at Cypress and stuff, is like, you got to remember that parents are a lot of times getting involved in gymnastics in the first place is because they want to have some place to like blow off steam, but also they want to raise good kids. They want like kids that are well disciplined, that have good values, that follow a team environment. Like they're kind of looking for those things. Like I want my kid to be a good human, and I think
Yeah.
gymnastics is one of the sports to do that. But that's the other thing we have to do really well too. Is gymnastics is like the slogan, like start here, go anywhere. Like you got to hook those parents on like, man, your kids will become better humans because they do gymnastics. And I think that's a really good starting point to get them involved for the advertising. And then from there, you can work your way down to like this competitive side.
Exactly. And I think that's the highlight of the club programs. I
Yep.
think that's the big highlight. I mean, again, self-funded. Most of them coach themselves, or they
Yep.
get somebody at a club program or a junior program that wants to help out. They raise their own money. They don't have boosters. They don't have alumni associations. They're raising their own money. They're creating their own plan. They're creating their own itineraries. They're traveling alone. They do everything. And I mean, if you want a college kid, oh, and by the way, he goes to school. He gets
Yeah.
great grades.
Yeah.
He's an athlete. I mean, what other better leader for anything beyond gymnastics is there? And so
For
if we
sure.
can get that out there and really publicize that and get that into the living rooms to these parents, then you get more buy-in there with the next step of what's next after high school.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, my kid's not a national team member. He's a great JO gymnast. He took top 3 at national championships in the JO division. What's next? What can we do next? And if we can get more of those kids, not just involved with Division One and these scholarship programs, but the other programs, and start stockpiling them there as well, and improving our sport at that level, I think we can start having conversation with the other universities in terms of, hey, now we're ready to go. Let's start talking about getting a program back into Division One so we can compete again at the varsity level, because it's going to take one program. And
Hmm.
everybody's been saying it for 20 years now. Let's get one program added.
Yeah.
I mean, in my career, there's never been a program added, only
Yeah.
only dropped.
Yeah.
And I would love to see one time in my career to see one program added.
Yeah.
Because if it happens, I mean, that's all we need. One
Yeah.
program to add, maybe another program will add. Who knows? I mean, you hear about girls programs adding. Well, if they can do it, why can't we? And they're not large. They're not Division One programs. They're not University of Texas where they're going to, all of a sudden everybody's going to come join. They're smaller Division Three, Division Two programs. That's all we need. We need a
Yeah.
Springfield to add. We need a UIC to come back. We need a Santa Barbara to come back. I mean, I remember you say Springfield and Temple. When I was at Gymnasium and Parkettes, that was Temple and Spring. I competed against Springfield College. I was in a club program, go compete against Springfield College
Yeah.
in a dual meet. It was awesome. Sometimes a tri meet, Navy would come in. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So if we can get those opportunities back again, I think we could really start highlighting these kids, because that's what it is. It's about these kids. It's not just, okay, yeah, we want to make our sport better, but why are we trying to make our sport better? So these kids have the opportunity to enjoy our sport and then grow, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, man. There's so much, like, you're just a wealth of knowledge and information, but I don't want to take too much of your time here. So I don't know, I guess my last question is do you have any parting advice to the younger male coaches, the people that are involved in gyms and stuff like that, things that you do now that you look back at your younger self and you were kind of shaking your head at, or things like that that are, really important?
So do we have about 3 more hours to go over
Yeah,
the
let's
things you did wrong?
go.
Everybody screws up, man. I came out of college, and I went, when I was coaching my first year, I was 21. I
Yeah.
was coaching at Oklahoma Gold. I was 22 when I came down here, and I was coaching with Bill as a 22-year-old. Gosh, let's go, man. Let's go make champions. And there's tons of stuff that everybody does wrong. And that's the
Mm.
one thing I did wrong back then, was I wanted to be awesome now.
Yep.
I wanted to be great now. I'm coming out. I have all this. I was with Mark Williams. I was at Oklahoma. I came from a great junior program. I was a national team member. I'm going to be great now with everybody.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I guess the biggest thing I would say, and I had another great mentor for many, many years, was Moss Watanabe.
Yeah,
And,
nice.
and Moss is the original gangster.
Yeah.
That dude could come into a gym and look and see somebody for 5 minutes and be able to predict his gymnastics and fix his gymnastics and tell exactly what he needed to do to make changes. I mean, the dude was unbelievable. And
Yep.
Bill brought him into our program a couple times. And when I took over, I continued to bring Moss in for 10 years. I
Yep.
didn't mess around. Moss was awesome. And so I guess a couple different things is attach yourself to good people, and
Yep.
don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't care how good you think you are, you can always learn, and you can always ask questions. And the one thing about our sport and our coaching community is we don't mind sharing.
Yeah.
We don't mind sharing information. I don't mind sharing. I let anybody come into our program. I'll answer any question,
Mm.
because we do want to get our programs better, our country better. So if you have a hotshot kid and I can help out, let me know. I'm going to help out, because what that's going to do is it's going to push our program to get better
Hmm.
at every level. And so the big thing is don't be afraid to ask questions to anybody about anything, whether it be, a simple handstand,
Hmm.
And I don't know what Dave's talking about. He had a good handstand in high school. We competed with him. He was around the same age as Raj, so we used to go at it.
Yeah.
He had a good handstand. Don't be afraid to ask questions to anybody, because you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
And the big thing is be patient. I wasn't patient. I wanted to be great right now, and I made a ton of mistakes with kids with trying to push them a little too fast, and not necessarily skills they shouldn't be doing, but pushing them a little bit harder than they really were willing to do. And so
Yep.
you've got to understand your kids in terms of where they're at, because you want to develop the love of the sport. They've got to love the sport to want to work hard later, because if they're not there, you're going to push them out of the sport.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to give a little bit, have a little fun. My biggest weakness as a coach right now is still that creativity to have fun, to play the games, because you get that. I want to get better. We got to do A plus B plus C to get D, and so don't be afraid to have those that fun aspect to it. We play a lot of games when it gets in the competition side, but it's hard to play games other times for me. We have fun in training and we joke around, but have some fun with the sport, but come up with a plan. And I think that's the biggest mistake people have. They don't truly have a plan. Oh yeah, I know what we're going to do this week. I know what we're going to do this next week, but come up with a plan. If you're truly in a program situation and you want to have these kids be successful, and you see this little hotshot little 9-year-old, do you have a plan for when he's 16, 17? Do you have an idea of what you're going to do and how you're going to get there, or are you just going to work hard every day? If you're going to work hard every day, that's great, but you don't see that future. And
Yep.
so my biggest thing I would say is put yourself in a room, put things on paper, make a long-term plan with these kids so you can work yourself backwards. And whether it be with the one kid or with your whole program, you got to do the same thing. The one thing I learned from Moss was 10 years. He said, if you're starting with a program and you want it to be great and a well-rounded program, it's going to take you between 5 and 10 years to get there. It's not going to happen in 2 years just because you have a couple good kids. Because a couple good kids, for me, isn't a program.
Right.
That's a couple good kids. How can you sustain a program and keep that going for long term? And it's a 5 to 10 year plan. You've got to have that plan put in place. So you have your older guys, your younger guys, your middle guys. And when they're getting older, do you have a plan for the next group to come up to continue that success? Because too often you'll see a coach have that one group and they go through all the way through and they get that group and they graduate on. And then where'd they go?
Yeah.
Are they starting all the way over again, or have they just we don't have anybody else?
Yeah.
And so what we pride ourselves on the program concept. That's what I said all the way back in the beginning. My 5, 6, and 7s, they're good kids. They're good gymnasts. We're not winning all the meets. We're not unbelievable athletes. We're not going out to Future Stars and winning Future Stars. But when we get to 8, 9, and 10, that 12-year-old and up, that's when we start hitting our stride. But that was something I learned a long time ago was you've got to get there. You've got to be super patient and have that plan and that progress set and some kind of a written down plan and idea to how to get there. And you've got to talk to people to find out how to get there. Because if you're young and coming out, you have an idea of it, but talk to people that have been there. Talk to people around you that have been there, and talk to people that have struggled with it. Because what I have learned is the best things I've learned are what not to do, not what to do. Because when you know what not to do, you won't repeat it. And then you won't continue to make that mistake. But until you know what not to do, you're going to continue making those mistakes.
Yep.
And shooting yourself in the foot. So the one thing that's the biggest piece of advice is figure it out. When you know what not to do, write it down to remind yourself. Don't do that again. Don't do that plan. Don't do that process. Don't do that drill. Go through those steps. try to go back and retweak those steps or the plan, or but you've got to be willing to kind of take those hits and write that down and remember it, so you can go back and not repeat the same mistakes. Because too often you see coaches repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, and they come to, well, I'm doing this drill, I'm doing. Well, are you doing it the right way at the right time with the right kid? So really go back and self-analyze yourself with what you're doing with the program, and how does it fit in your program. And because again, what works for me isn't going to work for you, and what works for you isn't necessarily going to work for me. So have your program, not someone else's program in your gym.
Yeah, man, I love that. And I think that's a really good place to end. But before we go, I just want to say, man, I think myself, I speak for a lot of people saying that we just appreciate all you've done over the years. And you're certainly someone who a lot of people look up to. And so I think you're a really good voice of reason, especially in an era of gymnastics that's very, very tumultuous right now. So
a little unreasonable sometimes out there, but I appreciate you having me on. I've met you at national team camp a couple years ago, and I'll tell you right now that my warm up in my gym and my shoulder prehab is still the stuff that you gave me a couple years ago that I've been using. And it's science that works, and it's something I've done over the years. And when I find something that works, and that's the one thing that I will say is, don't be afraid to try stuff. Even if you don't understand it, don't be afraid to try it, because you never know what's going to work. And I appreciate you for having me on, because I've been around, oh my gosh, for a while now. And I had great people ahead of me that weren't afraid to share their information and help me. And I hope that I can do the same thing for anybody and everybody else out there. You got questions, want to help out, want a little help with something. I say it at all the Congress lectures I do, or GAT lectures, or wherever. I have an open book. I have no problem sharing what we do. There's no secrets. I didn't invent anything. I've gotten creative with a couple drills and things that I do, but some ideas, but I don't have an invention. I just try to create things that work for my program, and I love to share, because I love the sport, and I want the sport to continue to grow, especially on the men's side, because we'll see ourselves up on the top of that podium one day. We have the athletes, we have the coaches, we have the programs. We just need to find a way to make it all work at the end.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I'm super flattered that you're still using the stuff that we gave you that one time. And so I'm glad it's helpful. But I feel like after we air this, people are going to really want another podcast that's a little bit more technical in nature. So this might be the first start of the series, the Tom Meadows series.
This is Dave's series. I'm just happy to be a part of it.
All right, man. Thank you so much. We'll let you go. I know you got a busy day ahead, but appreciate your time. And if you need anything from us, just let me know.
Anytime. Same thing, bud. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, man.
Peace.